Hello, everybody. Welcome back. And I've got Nancy Jean here.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. And so thank you, Nancy, for coming on and talking about your experience with ETs, aliens, what you know. And the reason I'm so happy that you're on, besides I like talking to you a lot, is I find that you are one of the most informed tarot readers that I know, and you have so much crystal knowledge, as well as you throw me down the rabbit hole on and you like it. Drives me a little crazy.
I get lonely down there, Danny.
So, but I wanted to talk about, the shifting energies that we're feeling with, we had a show on ley lines and dragon lines. We're going to do something on pendulum energies and how to access your energies through a pendulum. But talking about getting to ETs and how more of us are becoming aware of them. Talk to me, if you will, about when you started throwing cards. I mean, you've been around metaphysical stuff since you were that big, right? So this is all part of your whole makeup, your DNA. When was it that you became aware of ETs and their presence?
Okay. Really, what I do when I read cards, or what I do when because I think reading cards is a form of channeling, but I just prefer to use a physical form to keep me between things I don't see and things I know are there. Okay. And part of my problem was I was psychic since I was a kid, and my first meeting with a being that was not energetically 100% in our world was a ghost in England. And then later that night, that ghost tried to kill me. And this was back when they used to say, this was back in 1966, when they used to say things like, ghosts can't really hurt you. BS, guys. And I learned the hard way. So, and I actually got moved out of the hotel by the British police, by the London police, because they take their ghosts seriously, and they'd rented a room they shouldn't have rented. It's a long story, but they said, you're going to go sleep in this other building for the rest, because I was leaving England the next day. Thank God. Anyway, so for me, the whole idea that there were other beings out there were sort of like the ghosty guy that was in that room. And he of course, he wanted to talk to me because I was the biggest magnet to that kind of energetic shifts.
Right.
So I read tarot and played these games and did things. And his name was Jeffrey, and I actually got rid of him. I left him in my dorm room at SMU. Somewhere on the third floor of Bose Hall, there is a ghost. So I just kind of went along, and I'd be at psychic fairs, and people would be talking about ETs and the extraterrestrials. And because of my experience with an earthbound spirit, unless you're like, I can touch you, I don't want anything to do with you. But didn't mean I didn't want to read cards and see things and stuff that still fascinated me. So my second husband was a theoretical mathematician and a physicist. And he was on 22 pioneer patents, but 2 where his name was the primary one in microcircuitry and chips and stuff. So, I mean, that's kind of mind he had. And when we first started dating, he was 20 years older than I was. And people were like, why are you dating that witch? Why are you dating? And he said, she's not a witch. You can change the front letter occasionally, and that'll be her. But he said he used to sit there and said, I'm fascinated with what you do. And he actually claimed when he watched me work, he could see the energy shift around me. And he said, what you're doing is in the quantum fields. And he dove into understanding quantum mechanics. And he died in 2004. And up to the very end, he kept saying, they're going to find out what you do. It's in quantum mechanics and it's in this level. And he said, I don't think it's completely in string theory. And all this stuff was just, I mean, I never even took physics, guys. So it's going
right.
And I wish I'd listened to him more closely, because now as I study more deeply into these things, I do understand that what he was talking about was quantum. But he told me, you don't need to understand it because you just do it. So ETs and what I do for my bread and butter and working with the stones, they're all energetics. They're all where your vibration is, where your vibrations are. And I was watching something recently, and I'm reading a book by a woman named Penny Peirce, and I'll send the names of these books to Danny so I can attach them if you want to do that. But Penny Peirce is an expert in frequencies and our own body frequencies, and how the reason we don't see these other spirits is because our energetics are not up where theirs are. We've come into a 3D world. We were born here. That's how we got here. For the most part, all of us. And we have to kind of move ourselves beyond 3D to 4D to 5D. And so I believe they're there. I don't think I have to run out and talk to them. I have enough to do every day. Thank you. Also, I deal with rocks a lot and they don't. I mean, I deal with earth a lot and they don't. And part of us raising our vibration, though, the earth's vibration is changing rapidly. So if you can go out and walk, you can go out and hug a tree, you can go out and sit at the edge of the ocean, earth is going to feed you with a lot of the energy you need. Now, so I was just explaining to Danny, I'm actually allergic to the sun. And so I don't, needless to say, was never a big sunbather. And we're getting now, we know since we moved. Do you want to talk about the timeline of the cosmos that we went through?
Sure.
In 2017, scientists knew this was kind of coming, but we have our magnetic field around the earth that keeps the solar winds and stuff from beating us up, like killing us, so we don't look like Mars. Our whole galaxy, and actually in particular, our whole solar system had a cloud that was around it, and it had been around it for thousands of years. All of a sudden in 2017, they realized it was thinning.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of 2017 into 2018, we were clearly moving out of that cloud. And now from 2019 on, we have been sailing free. And so the after effect of that is that a lot more subatomic particles like neutrinos get on the earth. I can remember in my 20s watching a documentary about how hard it was. Neutrinos were a theory. They didn't think that it was just an idea. They created these vast things in the middle of the earth and all these weird places to find neutrinos, and they'd run it for a year and they'd find 3 that they could identify that went through it. We're getting bombarded by them now. So we're in a completely different energetic, and neutrinos are not a theory. They've proven how they work and how they work. They're so tiny. They pass through the earth at fast as almost the speed of light. But with all of them coming in now, what's happening is they're going through the iron core of the earth and they're triggering the iron core off. And then of course it goes, get out a map on Google, and then you can see the molten level, and then there's the crust of the earth that we live on. It's exciting the molten core. And that's why some of these ley lines and things are changing and emerging, because it's setting up, it's sort of like hitting a bell and creating a gong. When the mass of what happens, it becomes a gong and it spreads out. That's what's happening on the earth. Also, the sun doesn't have the things that it had that were protecting it. So a lot of rays are falling, a lot of these subatomic particles are hitting the sun, which screws up its energy system. So it is spewing out giant flames and things that are also affecting us. So we have cosmic rays, we have solar rays coming after us, where we don't have a protective raincoat anymore. So give it up, we're done.
And we're passing through that galactic cloud.
Right. We're not in the cloud anymore. And they think this lasts about 500 years. And the reason they think that is, and this I learned from studying crystals, every 12,000 years, something would happen to the earth, and there would be such a bombardment of these crystals that it would actually change the crystalline structure of the earth. And so they were expecting this. The geologists were expecting what was going to happen. Well, and then on top of that, one more thing. There's these giant waves of energy, plasma energy that wave through the universe. And it's like a wave that you ride that's out on the ocean. And they hit the earth and they pummel it around. And the first ones came in either December of 2019. Yeah, I think it was in December of 2019. And then we have 3 or 4 more of them. And they sort of know about how they ought to hit because they hit the rocks too. And I figured if it's damaging rocks, I mean, if it's causing a change in the rocks, just imagine what it's doing to us. And a year ago when I was
Is it damage or is it just change?
It's just change.
A frequency.
It's just change.
Yeah.
Of course, it makes the rock different. So it's making us different. And I found some cancer researchers that follow on a microscope, on a subatomic level, how their chemo and their radiation changes cells to see if people are healing. And they can actually see it, and they know what to expect now when they look. Since this started happening, they're finding it on the cancer cells, and it's not the scientists doing. We are changing on a molecular level.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and that, to me, that's so fascinating that, this isn't this evolution. It's not totally new. It's cyclical is what I'm hearing. Right. So this has happened before. When we look back in history, not US history, but like the Hopi history,
right?
They talk about this same type of energy. It feels like, I mean, yes, it's going to be different today, but still it's this we're getting to see things, beings from other galaxies or whatever coming in, and that is coming into our vibrational awareness.
Right.
And I think it is just all vibration for us to accept or not accept.
Right.
Right. Do you believe that we are starseeds?
Yes.
Okay. And that, growing up in the Catholic Church, when I first heard that, I go, oh, this is butting up against my long-held beliefs. This is not something that I can dig into. But you just kind of relax into it a little bit and you go, okay, let's see where this goes. And I think with this new vibrational awareness, it's going to be fascinating for for as long as I'm going to be around.
Yeah, I figure I've got about 30 years left, so that I want to be around. I mean, unless they're really fixing my cells. And so I think if you talk to people about their personal paths, most people felt a change in 2017 if they didn't really admit it. And of course, COVID stopped everything. And one of the distance healers that I work with her sometimes, she and I talk. She had a daughter who'd gotten COVID, and the daughter had brain fog. She got the original COVID, alpha, and she had really bad brain fog. So her mother said, well, I'll try to work with you. And her mother went in and started working with her daughter. And she said she actually had damage in her internal organs that she worked on first. Finally, she said, I got to go work with the brain. She got about halfway through the brain, and she said it was like, the best way to describe it that we could relate to was it was like pulling off icky, sticky spider webs that were congealing around her brain.
Yeah.
And she was like pulling it off and putting it into this bag so she could remove it. And halfway through, she was so exhausted. She said, I can't keep going. And the voices that work with her to tell her where to go and what to do, they said, you can't stop. If you stop, they'll never let you in again. And so she said,
they will never let you in again.
So she said, okay, it's like, get it out now or it ain't coming. So she stayed in there. She worked with her daughter for an hour and a half. Most distance healers like to work 20 to 30 minutes because it's so exhausting.
Right.
So anyway, she got the goo out. She had it in the metaphysical, the not imaginary, but the real ball that in the particular sort of distance healing she does, the faith healing, she throws it to the ground and Gaia purifies it, right?
Yeah.
So she starts to throw it to the ground and the voices said, no, 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 cast it to the sky. And so she went outside and she cast it up into the sky and she said, went up and up and up like a little firework and went poof. Yeah. So she called me right after that happened and she said, did this virus come from outer space? And I heard an immediate scream in my head, no, I can't get blamed for this. So I said, no, but let me think about it.
Can't get blamed for this.
Yeah. So the next morning when I was running around my bedroom doing my early morning crap, I heard, no, it wasn't aliens. It wasn't a life force. It was the cosmos. So what it is I think they were screwing around with genes. They shouldn't have been messing with stuff in China where they shouldn't have been messing with it. But I think what happened is we were in this neutrino belt and these neutrinos and the other things are coming through the plasma and it affected it and it grew differently than they expected it. And and of course it's mutating like a virus does, but that's what it was. So the next week I was talking to Intuitive View, Kim Carey, and Kim, I said, what's your feeling about that? And I said, I think it came from the energy shifts. And she said, I just got chills all over my whole body. That's right. It's not aliens. They wouldn't do this to us. So I don't think aliens want to run around picking a stick in the hornet's nest here. But that's the kind of energetic changes we're going through.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because when we start, just getting back to that bombardment, we think that we're going in the book of Hopi, they talk about how we on this planet, on that 3D form, are not supposed to be messing with that type of viruses and things like that. So we're going against the laws of nature as they understood it back how many centuries ago?
The old ones.
Yes. So even they were talking about don't mess with this stuff, yet we continue to mess with it. And now we have this new energy filtering through that we may or may not be aware of. And it does change things on a cellular level.
Yes.
That's what I'm getting.
It does. And it changes us. And in my case, my journey started in 1949, but the one I'm going to talk about now was from 2017 on. And it was in 2017 that I started to really read and do a lot more research. And I got my knees back. I got my legs back, which meant I could walk connected to the ground. You guys, it's a thing. And so then it was in 2018 that I dyed my hair purple on my birthday. And then it was in fall of 2018 that I ran into crystals and grids.
Your hair is purple?
Yeah. It's not, I know, Danny, you have a problem with color, but it is purple.
I do. Okay.
But and then I saw crystals and grids and messed and played with them. And then in February, I built my first crystal grid. It worked within 24 hours. And I went, there's something else here. So I began to tie into a different energy. Now I had an interesting sideline from all this. I got COVID at the 18th of December. and I wasn't clear until after the first of the year. I had the Omicron, but I had the, we can't prove it's not there yet kind of Omicron.
Yeah.
And it was very debilitating. And when they say it eats your energy, it eats your energy.
Yeah.
And day before yesterday, I built three grids, and I'd owed one of those women since the middle of December, because I'd turn around and I'd look at the rocks and I'd pull them out and they made no sense. I pulled them out
Right.
Sunday and everything just fell together. So
Awesome.
I kind of feel like a lot of my energy's back, but I'm having to be very careful with it. But one of the things also in that journey from 2017 on is, I lost 100 pounds because I had to take care of my body, 50 more to go, but it set me up in a much better situation to be able to handle all of the changes that I've had to personally go through. And every person I read and everyone I talk to are having to make conscious changes. Your consciousness is changing. What you're going to be aware of is changing. So if you just drifted along like a stick in the river, you're going to go over the falls before you know it. And if you want to have consciously make yourself into a little boat and figure out how to sail down that river, you're going to be happier. So
what about a barrel? Will that work?
Yeah, they found bodies
going over the falls in a barrel.
They found skeletons at the bottom of Niagara Falls when they stopped it to clean it up. Not my idea of a good time. I'm scared of heights anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and that's a great analogy. And I want to see, when we get in this river and we're going down it, it's clearly you can't go against the stream. But when you come to a waterfall, what can we do to prepare ourselves so that we don't end up a skeleton at the bottom of Niagara Falls?
Oh, go with the
current. I don't know.
Form yourself to the current that's around you. Understand the energies and the elements that are around you so you can control yourself around the rocks.
Yeah.
Just like I don't know if you've ever canoed, or I know you've done everything with boats, but if you've canoed or kayaked, you follow those.
Sure.
Those pushes.
Yeah. And you can get real close to those rocks and then they
push you
right
off.
around.
Yeah, they don't want you either.
What do you mean? They
don't
do too.
They don't want to get hit by you. So I know that's called going with the flow. And it's really hard because when you get into the flow and it's just riding right along and you just think, oh, this is going to happen forever and ever. And whether you're talking to ETs or talking to the energies we know here. See, I think those two are becoming melded together. And
I do too.
And you talked a little bit about the civilizations that we believe that were here before. I do believe Lemuria was here, and I do believe that Atlantis was here. And as a matter of fact, in my Akashic records, I was a big whoop in Atlantis. I was supposed to be a big whoop in Lemuria. And I know that in Atlantis, they misused crystals and blew everything up. And that's what I was an expert in Atlantis. And so I think we're capable of taking any forces given to humans and blow it up and ruin ourselves. And if we ruin this planet this time, they'll just come in and starseed in another group of beings and they will help, we'll get try 4 at this because that's what this planet was created for in the cosmos. And we are an experiment in 3D and ego. Ego is edging God out. That means resisting what the source tells us to do. So I think that I have to kind of remember to not do that because, and as a reader, it's really easy to, and it's if when you're just sort of la-di-da reading and not really caring about the impact on people, if you love the person and you think they've come to you with some thought and care, you have to tell them the truth.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's yeah, and it's not about you. It's not about how good you are as a reader, because you're getting this information from a different energy level than the 3D world.
Right.
Then yeah. So so being an old soul on this planet, firmly grounded with your new knees on the earth. If somebody comes up to you and says, okay, I'm starting to notice ETs around me and people are starting to think I'm crazy.
Well,
what advice would you give me? I mean, I'm asking for a friend, other people.
I'd say you need to lean into your experience, but you don't have to convey everything that happens around you to other people.
Absolutely.
And you can ask what the entities, the ETs or the angels or this. I have a friend who her particular expertise is fairies. You need to listen to, ask them what you can say about their presence in your life.
Yeah. I love that answer, because so often me being new to this, and I am new to this in the respect of 2016 on.
Okay.
That seemed to be a huge shift for me as well, even though I felt for, since I was a little kid, I was talking to people, and my wife goes, "You were talking to people when you were like 6 years old?" And I go, "Yeah, I mean, I had imaginary friends all around me." And she never did. I thought that was really weird that she didn't. She thought it was weird that I did. So but 2016's a big shift happened, big shift. And then we get COVID, so we have more time to think about all this stuff.
Was 2016 your second Saturn return?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to look.
Well, that's also something that nudges us. It starts saying, I've restricted you from seeing this, and now you have it. It's a big planet. It's a big planet push. But go on with your story and you and your people.
And me and my people. But one of the things that I connected with just this week was the idea that you just said. It's go about your business, do what you need to do. You don't need to share everything with everybody. Speak your truth as you need to speak it, and just stay present, stay focused, stay aware of what's going on, and let it come to you as it comes to you. Go down the river in your
in the boat of your own making.
Yeah.
I have
not a wine barrel.
No, not a wine barrel. No. Look, you don't know what's been in that wine barrel. Anyway, I had to go to a different doctor, and he's a specialist, and he looked nice young man in his 40s. And I just tell doctors now that I'm a psychic medium, because when you get as deep into it as I am, we have things we process differently.
Yeah.
And so I just found out it's better to tell them, because otherwise they can sense you're not telling them something they need to know. And then they wonder what you're lying about. Is it drugs or alcohol? I mean, that's a big one. So I told him, and he said, "Oh yeah, you're right. You guys are different." And I thought, and he said, "I have some in my family." So, now I did that because I felt in that place it was safe to say that. Now, do I go down? Do I tell clerks at the store that I'm a psychic medium? No.
Right.
I think it's kind of because you don't know where their head's at. You could scare the bejesus out of them.
Sure.
Whatever. And so,
and certain family members too, they're not ready to hear. And so that just comes to a lot of pushback and a lot of negativity that isn't going to promote your best interest. So Do they need to know? No. It's,
in
my
family,
opinion, they don't.
My family, I could be a psychic medium. They knew I read cards, all that stuff. But when I ran Obama's campaign, they wrote me off.
Oh.
So, everybody has their line. So it's not just being psychic. I mean, it's use common sense about anything that's happening in your life. And since I've been reading since I was 12, but I used to read at psychic fairs in the 70s and 80s. I would read people and they would like, oh, I could never do what you're doing. And I was pretty much convinced that's probably true because it takes a certain amount of time to learn it.
Sure.
Then I started teaching it and I never taught a class. And I even had a woman who came to my class because her next door neighbor was coming and she wanted to get out of the house. She had no idea what we're going to be doing. She was one of the best readers I ever trained. So, and then I became more convinced anybody can do what we do. That I just happen to be born with kind of a step up. Then starting about 2016, when I was reading at Gretchen's and I would read it times 10, I'd run into people who'd say, I have funny feelings. How do I deal with this? And then people started saying that to me. And then I'd have to kind of help them figure out what to do. And then in 2018 and 2019, it was all people who want to know about the ascension. And I mean, I would end up with the weirdest group of people at my table, and then they'd go, oh, tell us all you know about the ascension. And I'm going, I know like this much, because I thought it sounded like a bunch of bullshit when I first, monetize you. When I first heard about it, I mean, you're scratched from YouTube now, Danny. Anyway.
You're fired. You're fired.
You're back at you. Anyway, so I would call my friend in Colorado who was all into it. Every time when I left times 10, for literally 8 weeks in a row, I had people coming in. She said, when are you going to get the synchronicity of this? You better damn well learn about the ascension because it's going to be hitting you big time. And so then I really started paying attention to it. So listen to synchronicities. The other thing I think is really happening with the energetic shifts is I'm having more people tell me about synchronicities that are happening around them, where they weren't even looking for it, but the answer came.
Yeah. And I think too, when you said they're not even looking for it, but the answer is coming, but in a way they are looking for it because they notice the synchronicities.
Right. Well, and when they know, I mean, I'm slow on synchronicities. I mean, they have to come and take it and go wham on the top of my head, pay attention. But
have they been doing that recently?
Yes.
For me, it's like all
every day.
The time. I get in my car and my wife, she kind of jokes. She goes, yeah. I mean, she kind of is not on the woo-woo train. Mm-hmm. However, she is super psychic, really psychic. So I get into the car and I look and I go, look at the time, look at the mileage, look, and it's like all the numbers match up. And I'm like, at first she would like, yeah. Now she just starts laughing because it's happening all the time, just not numbers, different things that are popping up. So I don't know what it means yet because I'm not that into numerology, but I'm okay with it. I'm having so much fun just watching the synchronicities. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. So, and, I've been around so long. I've had the time to learn the cards, the numbers, I just stopped everything else and did readings and then just studied crystals and stuff and got into that. And I watched documentaries on all this stuff. And there's a lot of good stuff on YouTube. But what you'll find is if you run into something that your little BS meter shoots up, I pay attention to that. But but all this stuff on frequencies that's been following me around since last fall, I've, kind of had to go with it and figure out how to use it. But
one of the things you said, let me back up real quick because I think this is super important. When your BS meter goes off, there's a huge, we really need to pay attention to what we're being fed. There's a lot of crap on YouTube too.
Oh yeah.
So it's up to us to discern what is right for us and really pay attention to your BS meter. If
Right.
something doesn't feel right, don't go, oh, well, I need to go forward with it. I mean, I may say something, people may go, yeah, I really like what you do, like what you say. But if I say something that sounds BS, chances are it's probably BS for you. And, you know, don't treat it as true.
And what might be valid for me
Yes.
might not be valid for you. And yesterday I was so excited. I did a reading for a lady, and her life is just, she had sun like 3 times in 3 different parts of the reading. And I was telling her, I love this. And she said, well, I'm so glad, you know, and she kind of looked at me and I said, look, readers draw what's coming to them. So if I read someone's cards and everything's just wonderful and warm and exploding and happening all over the place, then that means that's headed for me if I don't step in the way. If I don't go, oh, but that couldn't happen to me. If I just let it happen, then it means that good times are coming. On the other hand, if I'm reading people who are really pulling in either a lot of false people in their lives or they're hanging on to something too hard, which is one of those other problems I've occasionally had, then I kind of pay attention to that and go, oh, what are the cards telling me? So that's just the thing you learn about readers. And so and having done it so long, and I try not to be judgmental, but I can tell when a reader's just talking because they need to make noise.
I try not to do that, Nancy Jean. I try not to do that.
You don't do it often, Danny. And if I figure if you're just making noise, it makes no sense to me. Must make sense in California.
Yeah. And there's always that off button too.
I know.
People forget the off button.
I know.
Yeah.
I forget it. I forget it for myself. Sometimes I'll work for 14 days in a row and then I'll go, oh, I need to turn the button off.
Yeah.
I'll hide in my chair.
Me too. All right. We're going to wrap this up in a little bit. So one of the things that I find, I don't get it. I don't understand it. Light language. Do you get it? Do you understand it?
What?
Light, I guess that's a no. Light language, where people are talking like in tongues, but now it's light language and it's really high chattery things.
Oh, there's a woman, and I think she's really smart, but she occasionally channels an ET. And I saw it once and I said, I'm never watching that again. I mean, It was so disturbing to me because it made no sense at all. Now, I will occasionally re-expose myself to things to see if they make any more sense. But my life lesson has been that if it doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense.
Well, I did have something, it doesn't make sense to me, but I did have an experience, and it was kind of interesting, where I'm meditating before I'm going to bed, and somebody had told me that I had some ETs around me, and so I go, if you want to show up, then you can show up. You can't scare me, but if you want to show up, in the middle of the night, I hear this, just this chattering going on. I'm like, oh my God. I go, okay, you're scaring me. And then it turned to Johnny Cash, and Johnny Cash was singing One. And I'm like, what? And so I go into my kitchen, my phone started playing Pandora radio at 2 or 3 in the morning. The next day, Scott Allen channels Johnny Cash. Kind of weird. And so I'm thinking about this, and I'm outside listening to some meditation music. Pandora switches again to Chet Atkins. I'm thinking ETs like to listen to Chet Atkins.
No, they're at the Grand Ole Opry. You just didn't join them.
I'm like, ET's like hillbilly music, and I love it.
Well, that's because you're from Missouri.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I used to play hillbilly music.
And see,
I have my banjo right here that I look at, and it's going, you can never play me again. I got bad fingers, so it's hard to play.
But well, it's all it's a mystery, but the thing is, it goes back to that know thyself, because we're, as an individual, as Nancy Jean, I'm moving into a world that is much more collective. And I've run large campaigns, I've run giant groups of people, but I always stayed at the point I didn't become part of the crowd. Okay. Yeah. I don't do that. I don't do that easily. I really don't do crowds, and I never have. And that has something else to do with what we do. But I'm getting messages. I'm going to have to learn how to surrender more to being in a crowd, working collaboratively in different ways, because that's what I need to do to take the next step I need to take. I've been told from my Akashic records that I've always been a leader, that after the first go round in Lemuria, I've always come back and ended up in a position where I said was important now. And it said, it doesn't mean 1,000 people follow you, although I do have a few more subscribers than that. But
yes, you do.
I know. It amazes me more than anybody else. But it also means that I need to accept the energy of others more than I have in this lifetime, because I had a tendency to stay very isolated. I think we're all converging into a collective of some sort. And
I agree. I feel that too.
And all of the readings and all the stuff and the whole 9 candles was about how are you connecting with other people and putting your collective energies together. And I think that's the next really important push for us to teach people about. I can use the cards and give them an answer to a question I should know, and that just validates to them who I am. But what validates me to what I'm doing with the world is to create ways people can unify and collect and become part of this greater whole, because the more of us, and that's what the thing we're doing with dowsing is so important, because the more of us that understand our energy and can figure out how to raise our energy without, having to meditate for 5 hours a day, but have the ability to find that switch and turn it on and off, because we're going to need it. We're going to need it in the next little while.
Right. Cool. So let me wrap up this. Is there anything that you want to say about, because it's an ET week show, right, anything that you want to say about how to either connect somebody new connecting with their guide, their ET guides? I mean, I know you're so grounded that you want to stay on the planet, and I think that's important for us to enjoy this 3D experience. Go out and hug a tree and smell the flowers, and not necessarily for you, but enjoy the sunshine, enjoy the cloudy weather, just enjoy the 3D experience we have. But is there something else that is popping into your head that you want to say about the ET experience as you're sensing it?
Yeah, I'd say just calm down about it. Just relax. Don't push it, because one of the things I told Danny is one of the reasons I think a lot of people don't see ETs that might be very interested in seeing them is they go in, I really want to see an ET, but it's like you take them somewhere and then it's like fear. And the second you go to fear, man, you're in the bottom of your vibrations, and you can't go anywhere from there. So you need to allow yourself to move forward without fear, without guilt. And that means if you come from a church that says, it's my way or the highway, and to listen and to not run away in fear when you feel something inside yourself. It's not, you need to dismiss the voices that are holding you back. I mean, my favorite thing to say to them when they show up and say, oh, well, it's not going to work out like that for you. I go, thank you for sharing, but it is. I do business advice for some people, and this woman made a statement about how she really wants these things. And I said, no, you need to change it to I have, because wanting becomes what your mind thinks you need. So keep it away so you continue need to want it.
Lack.
Yeah. So you need to say, I have it. I have the confidence to deal with these ETs, because remember, the other part is, if you really think they're stooped up MFers, you can never go near there again. I mean, you don't have to keep doing it.
Right.
You don't have, but I think once you get relaxed and get into understanding that quantum leap you're making outside of the energies we're used to into the new energies that surround us, when you make that quantum leap, it really helps you.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And the whole thing with fear goes, that makes such sense. You have to want, it has to be acceptance, and it's got to be with love and gratitude.
Right.
For me, always love and gratitude, with protection too. So you want to make sure that when you're asking for these experiences, that they're for the good of you and for all, not just because not just one person, because then that's probably a negative thing. Yeah, it's got to be for the good of everybody.
Being a curious galactic citizen, doesn't mean you get to go poke around everybody's house and pay no price. I mean, and pay and not have to give anything back. You have to give your understanding and your caring. And the other word I like besides acceptance is, with my eggs, I created an allowance prayer where you allow your energy to unify with the energy that are in the crystals and in that form. And that's what's really important.
Right.
Is to allow it.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, not push it, just allow it. Yeah.
And if it's there,
well, Nancy Jean, thank you so much. This has been, as always, super enlightening for me, and I hopefully for everybody watching. Thank you. Well,
thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and we'll see you on we'll see you on this planet.
We'll see. Yeah, come over to Nancy Jean's garden, where we're clearly grounded in the earth.
In the earth. Awesome. Love it. All right. Bye, everybody.